Sam and Twitch are best known as detectives in the Spawn universe, but are their adventures strong enough to stand on their own? Let's find out in our review of Sam and Twitch Case Files #1 from Image Comics. See you in 3. And welcome back to Comical Opinions. This is our review of Sam and Twitch Case Files #1 from Image Comics. This issue finds the detective duo's relationship on the rocks when Twitch gets a call to help with a gruesome murder. But before we get started, please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit that bell for notification. Your attention is greatly appreciated. Make sure you stay tuned to the end for the final score. Let's talk about the credits. Sam and Twitch Case Files #1 is written by Todd McFarlane and John Goff. The art is done by Simon Kudransky, colors by FCO Placencia and Sheila Saldana. I hope I'm saying that right. Letters by Tom Orzechowski, and the main cover, cover A, is drawn by Kevin Keane. The issue starts off with a brief prologue where we see a fugitive of some sort running through the forest, running through the woods. He gets to an old house that looks like it's in the middle of a farm, and he is surprised by somebody who kills him because he either didn't follow instructions or didn't do what he was supposed to do. So presumably this is a pair of criminals where one of them didn't follow instructions and he suffered the price for it. Then we cut forward to the city and we catch up with a young stoolie or informant by the name of Diego. Sam crosses paths with Diego and basically roughs him up a little bit because Diego didn't attend a meeting that he was supposed to. This leads to a series of reprimands from his boss or chief of police that basically forces Sam and Twitch to both be suspended for a month. This incident leads to friction and a separation, if you will, between Sam and Twitch because Twitch is done with Sam's corrupt ways, roughing up informants, skirting the rules, creating problems that make Twitch's life harder. And so now we catch up mostly with these two individuals who are detectives, finding out that their working relationship is on the rocks, mostly due to Sam's, he's not corrupt, but he's not dirty necessarily, but he doesn't like to play by the rules, doesn't like to listen to authority, and his lack of decorum and lack of professionalism is creating problems for Twitch, and Twitch is now at the point where he said, I've had enough of that. The issue then ends with Twitch getting a phone call from a former police academy colleague who says, I've got a murder in my hands, but it's not just one murder. It is literally a ditch full of chopped up bodies. Looks like from the pictures and the artwork, mostly women who are in an assortment of disarray from all the different body parts that are laying around. And that's how the issue ends. So there's not a lot to this issue. It's essentially establishing the world, establishing the characters, and then the cliffhanger is Twitch getting a call to add, if he can, a fresh set of eyes to a pretty gruesome, pretty grisly murder case. Just an interesting factoid that could provide some context and clarification. Where does this story fit within the greater Spawnverse, which is where Sam and Twitch come from? The answer is, at least for right now, we don't know if it does at all, because right now it's all about Sam and Twitch, the relationship with the community, the relationship within the police force. There is not a hint of Spawn activity anywhere in this title. Whether or not it will even connect to Spawn at all remains to be seen. So if you're thinking, okay, this is a Spawn story from the Sam and Twitch perspective so far, right now, it's not. This is a straightforward crime, murder, detective type story. What do we like about Sam and Twitch #1? The story feels gritty and grimy in a grindhouse sort of way. You do see full frontal nudity and blood and gore from the bodies that were murdered. So the mature rating that's up in the credits is definitely this is definitely a mature rated comic. This is not for the squeamish. It's not for kids. There's plenty of cursing and body parts and gore. So you don't want to give this to a kid, but it definitely has that gritty, grimy grindhouse feel. And the shocking scene of violence that you see at the end definitely leads to some heightened anticipation. Plus the dramatic tension between Sam and Twitch and between Sam and his chief of police and all the things that are going on. This feels like a very almost a 1970s style, hard-hitting type of detective story. So that's a good thing. And this is a little bit of a departure from the more supernatural or fantastical elements that we normally would see out of a Spawn-related comic. What didn't we like about Sam and Twitch Case Files #1? The story is very thin. It's all world and character building for 90% of the issue. You only figure out that there's a case and something that needs to be pursued on the very last 1 or 2 pages. So the question is, if you're a Sam and Twitch fan because you know them from the Spawnverse, you don't get really anything new here. You know Sam is a rough around the edges kind of cop who skirts the rules and gets them in trouble. You know Twitch is a straight-laced cop that consistently puts him at odds with Sam. But if you already know that, then you really don't get anything out of the first 90% of this comic. Will the detective story, which is the thing that's going to pull you through, be interesting and intriguing? Maybe. All you know is that there are bodies, and that's not much of a hook for a story of this sort. So as it stands right now, it's kind of a wait and see. This didn't really grab me. Now, if you're new to Sam and Twitch, maybe there's something interesting here for you. But if you're new to Sam and Twitch, there's no indication of why you would be interested in this title in the first place, because the hook is that they're related to Spawn, so you would already know who they are in the first place. So maybe not. But the hook is weak, and you don't get a lot of meat from the story in the first issue. So that's a bit of a downer, but it's only enough that it's going to be a wait and see for issues 2 and 3. Maybe there'll be something more there to grab somebody's attention down the line. Let's talk about the art from Simon Kudransky. It is very stylized in the sense that it's rendered from photographs or at least photo representations. It's not traced, but it's definitely extruded from anatomy and pictures of real life people, and then stylized to fit within the comic format. This does not at all look like a Spawn comic in any stretch. This does not at all look like something that would be coming from Todd McFarlane's shop of storytelling. This looks more like what you would see in the small to medium-sized publisher or indie-sized comics. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but if you're looking for Todd McFarlane level quality of art, you don't get that here. This feels very much like an indie comic in the sense that there's a lot of photo referencing and tracing, and that's, if that's your style, okay. Were we blown away by the art? Not really. So it's just okay, not great. Final thoughts. What do we think about Sam and Twitch Case Files #1 from Image Comics? The dialogue is good. The character interactions are good. It sets up a pretty gruesome, violent murder, which may or may not be Spawn related, which is fine. On the flip side, if you're already familiar with Sam and Twitch, 90% of this comic is old news and you get nothing out of it. You don't really see that there's any kind of story or plot until the very last page. And then even still, it doesn't really tell you much of anything other than people have died. So plot-wise, the story is very weak. If you're familiar with the characters, you don't get much out of most of it. So it's not necessarily a bad comic, but it's a very wait-and-see comic. Plus, the art quality and style doesn't look like anything even remotely reminiscent of a Spawn comic, which may or may not be a bad thing depending on your point of view. Therefore, we're going to give Sam and Twitch Case Files #1 from Image Comics a 7 out of 10. It's okay, not great, but we'll see how it turns out in issue number 2, number 3, which we will follow up on. What do you think about Sam and Twitch? Are you a fan of the detective duo that operates in the Spawn universe? Do you think that they are strong enough to stand on their own in a miniseries of this sort, or does it not make sense to you that they would try and do their own thing without Spawn, and it just doesn't make sense? I want to hear your comments, your thoughts, and whether or not this was a good idea or a bad idea, or if you're interested in what happens moving forward. Let us know in the comment section down below. And if you like reviews just like this one, please stay tuned through the outro.